Hello everyone, and welcome to today's Dynamics 365 Tech Talk, where today's topic is Dynamics 365 Finance, Electronic Invoice under GST for India. My name is Evan, and I'll be your moderator today. We are broadcasting this web conference through Teams Live events, and the audio can be heard through your device speakers. Today's web conference is being recorded on behalf of the Microsoft Corporation, and by participating in the session using Microsoft Teams, your name, email address, phone number, and/or title may be viewable by other session participants. If you do not consent to being a part of a recorded session, please disconnect at this time. The recording will be available on the Tech Talks Community Dynamics page within 5 business days. If you have questions for the presenters or need support, please use the Q&A panel located on the right side of your screen. Our presenters will be responding to your questions throughout the event. Thank you for your patience during these announcements. Now let's get started. Presenting for us today from the Microsoft Dynamics Global Experience team, we have Prabhat Bhargava, Senior Program Manager, Marek Rolecki, Principal PM Manager, and Nikolay Kasyanenko, Software Engineer. Prabhat, over to you.
Thanks, Ivan. So, as you know that this is a new feature which is applicable from 1st of October. But before this, it's important disclaimer to you. You have to read the disclaimer, where the presentation will be a Microsoft confidential. Whatever the feedback you will provide during the presentation may be used by the Microsoft for the other purposes as well. The dates and other thing which we will discuss during the presentation may subject to change, and we do not guarantee any accuracy of the information which we will share during the presentation. So you can have a look at this disclaimer completely. Yeah. So agenda would be, I will cover basically the conceptual part of e-invoicing, some of the things which are essential to know about the e-invoice. Then after that, the solution overview will be presented by Marek and the demo of the solution. And after that, you will see the overview of the solution of AX 2012 R3. So I will start with the what is the concept of e-invoice. So, yeah. So what is the important question is which comes to the layman mind, what is the e-invoice? So e-invoice is not generation of an invoice from the ERP or from a digital system or from a computer. The e-invoice is generation of an invoice in a format which can be which is generated from the one system and identified by the another system. So the invoice is generated from any ERP, it should be understandable and it should be accepted by other ERP, then it is called a e-invoice. So government has issued a standard template and expecting that invoice should be generated in that template. And once the invoice is generated from the particular format, it should be accepted by any ERP. Invoice has to be registered to the e-invoice portal, and that is called IRP. That is invoice registry portal. Their invoice has to be registered, and there will be the standard format where the certain fields will be mandatory and certain field will be optional. An optional field is to take care of the business in specific business requirement for the e-invoices. So if any business has a specific information needs to be published on the invoices, so those informations are optional in the system. E-invoice standard, the government is actually taking care of the global standard here, and it will be acceptable across the entire ecosystem. Then once the invoice is uploaded on the government system, the government will generate a unique ID that is called the IRN number, and this number has to be printed on the invoice for validation purposes. The concept will be similar to the invoice system today, because when you generate an invoice system, the invoice number is generated, and that invoice number you mention in the invoices or the transportation document. IRN number will be based on the document type, invoice number, registration number of the seller, and the financial year. The combination of this will generate a IRN number. Then each business has to be registered. So one important thing is every organization may have a multiple GST and registration number. So they have to get the user ID and password for each registration number and must have a valid registration, and then need to upload the invoices for each registration number. Then government will validate the whatever the information, e-invoice information you will upload, and based on that IRN will be generated and provided through a JSON format, which user has to again import into their own system and then need to publish it. Now the certain important point come here, what would be the uh, total turnover required, because initially government has 500 crore turnover. So what it mean? So what a 500 crore turnover means after the introduction of a GST. So GST was introduced in 17-18 financial year. So in from the financial year 17-18 till the current year, if any of the year, if the 3B turnover declaration is more than 500 crore, then it is mandated for the supplier to generate a e-invoice. So this particular turnover will include your stock transfer transactions, your normal B2B transactions, even the purchase return will be part of the total turnover calculation. Next slide, please, Marek. Yeah. So other important information which is really important is if a organization have a single PAN number, because turnover will be based on the PAN number. But if under a one PAN number, a organization have a multiple GST and registration number, then organization has to register for every GST number. They have to have a username and password. And when they are uploading the invoices directly on the IRP portal, it is necessary they have a customer secret and customer ID. Both client ID and client secret must be with them. So along with the registration username and password, these two information they should have when they are directly uploading on the IRP portal. Here you can see that what are the transactions initially covered by the government. So all B2B transactions are covered. All B2G means business to government transactions will also be covered. Export transactions will be covered. Deem export transactions. Supply made by the supplier under the RCM. So it is not applicable from the buyer, but the seller turnover is more than 500 crore, and even the seller is selling under the RCM. The transaction will fall under the e-invoice category. Similarly, if the e-commerce operator has to file the e-invoice if based on behalf of the supplier. So these are the transactions initially covered. B2B will also cover the stock transfer transactions. What is not covered is B2C transactions. So initially government, like before the introduction, government said even the B2C transactions required to have the QR code. So now the government is saying the B2C transactions will be out of the scope of the invoice. Import bill of entries, free trade and warehousing zones will be exempted. SEZ units will be exempted. So SEZ units uh, is out of scope, but SEZ developers, uh, if they have to generate a invoice. ISD invoices will again be input service distribution invoices will be out of scope. Insurance and banking companies, actually there is no clear cut uh, clarification by the government, but it looks like that the insurance and banking companies will be out of the scope. GTA supply services will be out of scope. Recipient under RCM will be out of scope, and purchase return where there is a confusion from the market and we are getting so many questions. But as per my analysis, the purchase return will be out of scope because the relevant purchase invoice will not be there. One important thing is in the IRP portal, government do not maintain any relationship between credit note and invoices. So there is no archiving, there is no record is kept by the government. Once the government generate a IRN number, you have to preserve that. So government will not preserve it, not archive it. Document covered are invoice, debit note, credit note, and export invoices. Document not covered are delivery challan, where you are transferring one location to another location material on the delivery challan basis. So those delivery challan will not be covered. Bill of supply will not be covered. A receipt voucher and refund voucher will also not be part of the coverage. The blue part is where the Microsoft solution will initially stage will work. Those are blue will work in the initial stage for the invoice generation. One important point is if somebody do not have a ERP or there is a question, those who are not using any invoice system, the government is providing something there. Yes, government is providing offline tool. You can download the offline tool and you can upload your invoices. So those who are not using the ERP system, those who are not using any software, the government is providing a offline tool where the user can fill the invoice details, can upload and get the IRN number, and then IRN number they can print on the invoices. So those mechanisms are provided by the government. Next, please. Next slide, please. Marek. Yeah, generation of a IRN. So IRN is important information. IRN will be generated by the IRP portal, and this will be communicated through a JSON file. The second is earlier the government mentioned that within 48 hours you have to upload your invoices, but now this time government have not put any ceiling in under how many hours you have to upload your invoices, and government is including multiple IRPs to handle the transaction load. So this is the basic information about the IRP. Then IRP will be embedded in the QR code. So QR code to be displayed on the invoice, that would be mandatory. The IRN number is optional. User want to show it on the invoice, they can do it, but the mandatory thing will be the QR code. Then there are, if you see, there is a dynamic QR code which is some company publish on the invoices so that the buyer can make a payment. So those QR code will be irrelevant here and no relevance with the QR code here. So that is one of the important information, that dynamic QR code will not be relevant. Then, as I stated you earlier, there will be 4 parameter: document number, document type, seller GST number, and financial year. These will actually able to generate your unique number there. The number of invoices, earlier there was 100 line, but now government clarified under the invoice, one invoice can have a maximum 1000 lines. If you have more than that, you can contact to the government NIC about this. Charges, the government has prescribed again the guidelines there. If you have a charges on the document, you have to create a separate charge line and apply taxes on that. Regarding the tax collection and source, initially the government has not covered the TCS part here, but I think in the next phase, government will include how to display the TCS on the invoices. Yeah. Next is the data validation by IRP. When you upload your information on the IRP will check the deduplication, whether the same invoice has been used or not. Similarly, they will check the GST and check the supplier GST and is valid, the buyer GST and valid. PIN code, they will check state name and PIN code is correct. SEZ unit, then they will see that IGST is applied on the SEZ transactions. HSN code must be minimum 4 digits. UQC should be from the government code master codes list. If you have defined something unit in a unique way, so when you are defining your unit of measure, ensure that it matches the government published code what they have published. Tax rate is only the system will take the applicable tax rate. If the tax rate is not from the accepted rate, then government will reject it. In case of export, government will check the certain information, the type of transaction is export, the port ID, the country code, the currency, with and without payment. All these information would be mandatory there for export invoices. Printing on invoice. So as I stated you, the IRP will return the JSON file. The important questions, the important thing is to be note here that there is no need to transfer to signature to sign the invoices, because IRP will return with their digital signature with that, but the seller need not to be. It is not necessary that digital signature has to be put on the invoice before uploading to the IRP portal. So those signatures are not required. And if you, when you are giving it to the buyer, then you can download the invoice. You can take a PDF print of that invoice and can put a signature. That is fine. But from the IRP registration point of view, you need not to put any digital signature there. Then QR code, as I stated you earlier, the QR code is mandatory to print. You can print your logo, but the IR number is optional to print. You can print as well, and you can ignore that as well. Acknowledgement number and date. Uh, when you upload your IRP, there is acknowledgement number is generated, but this acknowledgement number is your own internal purposes. It need not to be print on the invoices. Cancellation is one of the important option. You can do a cancellation of invoice. You cannot do a partial cancellation of the invoice, but certain things which you have to be aware of for the cancellation, that once your e-way bill is validated by the government, you cannot do a cancellation. You have to first do a cancellation on IRN portal, and once the invoice detail is uploaded to GSTR1 report, even after that you cannot do a cancellation. So and once the cancellation is done, you cannot use the same number again for the next invoice. So these are some of the important things which you should be aware of, and you need to see that those things are taken care by you when you are doing a cancellation process. So, and that is the very high level invoice upload process. You can see here the system will generate a invoice if it is in a JSON format, and you have to upload through APIs to the IRP portal. Then IRP will do they will generate a hash, and they will do a deduplication check, other checks they will do. And when they find everything is in order, they put a digital signature on the invoice. And after that, the QR code and JSON uh, uh, and the IRN number will be communicated back through to the user. But the IRP portal then forward to the GST system. And suppose you have to do any correction in the invoice, you cannot do the correction on the IRP portal. You have to do correction on the GST system. So no correction will be allowed on the IRP. Correction will be allowed on the GST system. Whatever the data you will upload, the IRP will forward the data to the GST system. Currently, the GST1 will update based on this. As the government was looking to introduce the Annexure 1 and Annexure 2, the new return process, I think that is put on hold. But going forward, the Annexure 1 will update and Annexure 2 will update. And the user will also, the buyer will also get the invoice. But currently, the user has to download the invoice, then take a printout, put a signature, and provide to the buyer. But going forward, the buyer will get a copy through an invoice from the portal. So this is the high level process which has to be there. But one important thing is user should have the client ID, client secret, user ID and password to upload the invoice on the IRP portal. Because if you do not have these information, you will still face the problem with the current solution what we have provided to you. And second important information is you have to, for every GSTN number, you should have a username and password. One PAN number is for the turnover tracking, but not for the uploading of the invoices. So that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prabhat, for the great overview of the requirements. So before we switch to the most interesting part of our today's meeting, I mean the demo and walkthrough through the solution, setting it up and the process how we work with electronic invoices in India. Let me give you a quick overview of the solution in Dynamics 365 for finance. So I would like to describe the architecture and implementation to let you understand the configurability options to anticipate further customizations to already mentioned by Prabhat specific business needs, if that's the case, or other integration possibilities. So we've been using three already existing pillars tools in the system. So electronic reporting is a tool that you can configure and use formats for both incoming and outgoing electronic documents in accordance with legal requirements or just technical specifications. So in general, this engine is targeted at the business users rather than developers, because you can configure those formats instead of coding them. So the process of creating, adjusting formats of those documents should be faster and easier. So in our specific use case for electronic invoice for India, we have basically the definition of the electronic invoice itself in a JSON format done through electronic reporting, as well as we have all the messages used for interoperation with the IRP, both incoming and outgoing messages defined in electronic reporting. So the other super important component which we use heavily in the solution is electronic messages. So that's the functionality which supports various processes for electronic interoperation between finance and systems for reporting, submitting, and receiving official information. So this module, the electronic messages, is tightly integrated with electronic reporting. So it means that you can set the formats for those electronic messages, and afterwards use it in the platform of electronic messages to communicate with external web services. So here we have the definition of the whole process, how we deal with the electronic invoice, starting from data preparation through the establishing connectivity with IRP web service for register or cancel the electronic document, along with receiving all the information, already mentioned QR code, IRN, and logging the whole history along with that required information back to the system for further inquiry. So last but not least, what we use is data management, which basically simplifies user life easier. So we provide the data package, which contains in the compressed file basically the data project manifest and the data files, which after loading through the data management allows you to have the electronic messages pre-configured. So there are still some steps which will be highlighted by Nikolay afterwards, which needs to be undertaken in order to finalize the configuration, but most of the work is being done through that. So let me quickly walk you through the process, how it looks at the electronic invoicing from the product perspective. It is not much different from the regular posting of the document, but exactly in that step, there is the first difference coming. So prior posting, we have introduced a new step to use the configurable electronic reporting format to validate existence of all the mandatory information which is necessary to have in order to submit and register successfully electronic invoice at IRP. So that's something what can be enabled or disabled, but we have that possibility. But apart from that, assuming that you have the setup done regarding GST numbers, HSN codes, etc., you can post an invoice, and then through the regulatory reporting runtime, which contains of electronic reporting and electronic messaging, first we take that invoice and transform it into electronic form and in JSON format through electronic messages. It is being sent after establishing connection to IRP. So after successful registration or cancellation, we get the confirmation of the operation, and for registration, we obtain the QR code and IRN, which is brought back to the system through incoming electronic reporting formats and saved in the database. For instance, to reprint the invoice containing all the required information. So to summarize the functional coverage which we have currently, so it's additional validation prior posting of a document for any type of mandatory electronic invoice information, but that's something what can be easily customized and extended if your business requires to have additional validation. Then we support integration with IRP and creation of electronic invoice in JSON format according to specification 1.03, both for registration and cancellation the invoice. And afterwards, after receiving the information from IRP, we print those as it is shown in the example on the slide in the tax invoice debit or credit note. So as already pointed out, there were some optional requirements or optional possibilities to be implemented, which were scoped out. So we do not support out-of-the-box digital signature by seller. So that's something what needs to be customized if required, but it's not mandated. And generation of IRN, temporary IRN by the supplier. And so before we go for demo, I would like also to highlight certain limitations which we have currently in our solution from functional perspective. So we do not fully support the transfer orders and the printed GST invoice from there. And we do not fully support multiple registrations at IRP. So obviously all the possibilities are in the system. But the current set of the client secret and all the information which is required to establish connection with IRP can be defined only once per legal entity. So that's something what we'll be working on and will change. And the date when those additional enhancements to the feature will be coming will be announced in the lifecycle services. So with that, I would pass the mic to Nikolay to walk you through end-to-end process for setting up the system and illustrate how we work with electronic invoices in India.
All right, I'm going to show you the setup and how to use this feature. So first of all, to set up this feature, we should go to feature management. It can be done via workspaces. You can go to feature management. You need to find the feature called electronic invoice under GST and enable this feature. You can see the description of this feature, and also there is a learn more link, and if you click on that, it will redirect you on the KB article with a full description of this feature, setup, and how to use it. So when the feature is enabled, we can proceed with the electronic reporting side. So we need to go to electronic reporting. And you need to import several configurations. The list of these configurations can be also found in the KB article. So we have two models, electronic message framework model, and all the configurations under this model are used for the communication with the IRP. And we have the invoice model with the two formats, one for project invoice, one for sales invoice. These configurations are used for generating the JSON file of the invoice. So when you import this set of configurations, we can proceed with the data package import. So we provide the data package, which is called Indian IRP integration setup, and to import it, we can go to data management workspace and create a new import task. I'll switch to the standard view. Let's name it invoice. In the source data format, we should specify the package type, and then we are ready to upload the zip file. While it is loading, I can show that this zip file is just a set of Excel files with all with most of the setup that is needed on the electronic message side. You can import these Excel files one by one, but it is way easier to use the package. So when these tiles are populated, you can click on import, and it will take about 1 or 2 minutes to import this data package. We don't need to wait that because I have all these setup done in other legal entity, and we can proceed with the feature setup. So when this data package is imported, it populates most of the setup that is required for the electronic messages. And the electronic messages setup can be found under tax module, under the setup, and there is electronic messages. So after the data package is imported, you can click on electronic message processing. So all this information was populated after data package import. You don't need to set up it manually. So here we have two processes. One is used for cancellation, and the other one called online invoicing used for for invoice registration. So here you can see the set of actions, and it is actually a workflow. So all these actions are taken for each invoice in the system if you want to register it. So after the data package import, the only thing left to set up is located under executable class settings. You can go here, and here you will see 3 executable classes. So what you need to do is, for each executable class, you need to click on parameters and select here for additional fields evaluation, you need to select the APP key here. And for project invoices, this is the setup. You need to select the format mapping used for this executable class and message statuses. All the screenshots of this setup can be found at KB article. So after that, we can proceed with the key vault settings. So as we're trying to register an invoice, first of all, before the invoice registration, we need to obtain the credentials from the IRP. And for all the your company has to be registered at IRP, and there you'll find the set of credentials that we are using to be able to communicate with the IRP. So in system administration module, you'll see the system parameters. And what you need to do is, in general section under certificates, you need to enable use advanced certificate store. This checkbox says that you are using key vault. So to set up the key vault, in the same module under setup, you'll see the key vault parameters. So you need to create a key vault, and before setting up this form, you need to insert all the credentials provided by the IRP in your company-owned key vault under your Azure subscription. And here you need to set your key vault parameters. And under the secrets, we have 5 total secrets used. Certificate, which is all these secrets can be obtained at IRP after company registration. So we have the certificate, client ID, client secret, and username and password. After this setup is after this setup, we can go to invoice parameters. So under accounts receivable module, in the setup section, you will see the electronic invoice parameters. This is a new menu item. Here we have validate before posting checkbox. It is, if you click on that, the validation format is getting enabled, and here you can select the validation format. It is configurable validation format used to validate mandatory fields before invoice posting. And here is the set of credentials that you can get after your company is registered at IRP. You need to specify the GST IN and this 5 credentials that we set up at key vault parameters. After this setup, we can proceed with the customer setup. So to be able to create electronic invoices, you need to go to the customers, all customers. You can select the customer, and under invoice and delivery section, you need to switch this invoice checkbox. So this checkbox means that all the invoices for these customers are ready to be registered. So that's all for the setup. Now we can proceed with the feature usage. We need to proceed to electronic messages. They can be found at the text module under inquiries and reports. And here you can find the electronic messages. You can click on electronic messages. And here you will see the 2 processes that were populated after data package import. So to be able to register an invoice, first you need to select this process and click on Run Processing. You can run this processing manually, but if you click on this Run in the background, you can set up the batch job for this process, and you can set up recurrence for this batch job, so you don't need to run it manually every time. So as you can see here, we have some messages. Each message corresponds to the invoice in the system. If you select any message and then scroll down to the message items, you'll see the original document menu. And if you click on that, it will redirect you to the invoice that was used for registration. And here you can see the new menu item called invoice. And if you click on that, it will show you all the information about the invoice. So I can show you an example of the if you were run this processing and afterwards you'll see the messages with some statuses. If the status of the message is IRN received, that means that your invoice was registered. And in the action log of this message, you will see all the actions that were taken for your invoice, and in the end, you will see the IRN received, which means that it was registered successfully. So we can click on this message and proceed to the original document. And under the invoice menu item, you will see that this invoice was has status sent, and you'll see there are two fields: acknowledgement number and acknowledgement date. And under details tab, you can see the IRN of this invoice, signed QR code, and signed invoice. So if your invoice was registered, you can print it, and the invoice layout was changed a bit. Here you can see that in the header of invoice you have a QR code, and here you will see the IRN number. So that is all for invoice registration, and the other process called cancel invoice is used for invoice cancellation. To be able to cancel the invoice, we can go to the invoice that was previously registered, and under this e-invoice menu item, you can see that there is a cancel button. So what this button does is here we see that the invoice status is sent, and if we click on cancel, the status is changed to cancel, which means that this invoice is marked for cancellation. It is not canceled yet, but it is marked as ready to be canceled. And now we can run the cancellation process. It can also be done recurrently. You don't need to run it every time manually. You can just click Run Processing, and after this process is done, you will see that the invoice was canceled. And if we proceed to the invoice in the system and click Invoice, you'll see that the status was changed to cancelled. We have now the cancel date, and the IRN is still present, but the signed QR code and signed invoice fields were cleared. So that's all for invoice registration and cancellation. There is still one thing left to show. So I showed you the successful scenario if the invoice was registered or canceled successfully, but if something went wrong, you can see that this electronic message has status error invoice response importing. And if you scroll down to the action log, you can see that here in the response code we have file 5002 and some response description. This is the description that we received from the IRP. Means that something is wrong with the invoice that we are trying to register. And if we click on the message itself, here you can see that there are 5 attachments. If you click on this button, you'll see basically this is the whole process of registration. First, we generated the JSON file for the invoice. Then we created the authentication request, and we received the token from the system, which means that we authenticated successfully. But then we try to send the generate IRN request with the encrypted invoice, and then we receive the invoice response. If we open this JSON, here is the response that we received from the IRP with the same error code and error message that I showed you before. It means that you have something wrong with your invoice. And in case of successful registration, we can see there are more attachments. So we received the response, and then we decoded it. And if you open this invoice decoded, you can see that this is the acknowledgement, number, date, IRN, and all the signed invoice and QR code details. And that's it for the feature usage. Marek?
Thank you very much, Nikolay. So let me take over. And now we are reaching the last part of our today's meeting, which is devoted to overview of the implementation of the solution for AX 2012 R3. So I will focus here on highlighting differences in comparison to implementation for Dynamics 365. So first of all, the main difference is in the way how we handle certificates. So obviously the process of registration at IRP and obtaining all the secrets and credentials is the same. However, the way how installation is being done is different, right? So for Dynamics, we should, or even in production environment, we have to use Key Vault to refer to those secrets. In case of AX 2012, those certificates can be installed locally on the computer and then referred directly in electronic invoice parameters form. So as you can see that there are some more information to be populated. There is some more parameterization to be done in electronic invoice parameters form in AX 2012 before some of those URL paths, etc., are being preset through our data package import in Dynamics. So here is something what you need to check if it doesn't change and populate manually. And the biggest difference is in the usage of our electronic reporting and electronic messages. So lack of those tools forced us to provide a solution through X++, so the whole functionality is coded, and obviously you have all the customization possibilities as for any other functionality in the system. Yeah, but in order to help you with customizing the JSON electronic invoice, there is a description in the KB article, right, which highlights the implementation specific classes which are used there. So the process of working with electronic invoice is slightly different in AX 2012. Yeah, so the central place to manage all the electronic invoices is the workspace. In periodic operations in AR, so we have the dedicated form electronic invoices where you can send, cancel, and review all the details for the submitted and cancelled documents. So the same is used to troubleshoot any kind of issues. So that there is there are dedicated controls showing error messages and codes in details tab of the form. So in terms of availability, we made it we made that functionality available for all the versions which were supported at the end of August. So it means it's AX 2012 R3, and the important remark here, so the package which is available, it's applicable for any CUs. So the important prerequisite and the only prerequisite is to have R3 version and to be installed on top of that. So it corresponds to the build number shown here. Apart from that, for Dynamics 365 Finance, we published 3 packages, so available correspondingly for 10.0.11, 10.0.12, and 10.0.13. So any build as it is shown here or higher contains all the features, all the functionalities which we were describing through the presentation. In the bottom of the screen, you have link to LCS issue search, which will list you all the work items, all the entries corresponding to those updates, where you will be able to access the knowledge base articles as well as obtain information or obtain directly packages to be deployed with the application update. So some very useful links, obviously the knowledge base articles. So we have 2, one for Dynamics 365 Finance and another one for AX 2012 R3. Apart from that, I would encourage you to visit our the Dynamics and the regulatory features, other landing pages. So we have globalization portal, we have LCS, where you can dynamically search and see the availability of current functionality, as well as our plans of upcoming features. So for those who would be looking into way how the current solution can be customized in order to support specific business requirements, here are the links to electronic reporting, electronic messages, and the data management, which should be obvious for majority of people since it's widely used. So as always, we are reachable at our dedicated Yammer group for globalization features. So feel free to post any questions through that channel. Important remark, so it's available for those organizations or those individuals who are signed up for Insider program and the PIP program for Dynamics 365 Finance. So with that, we can review the questions which we've got during the presentation and were not answered. Let me check if we have any. Yeah, so we have still 5 minutes, so let me take a few of them at least. So, but feel free to post further questions to the chat. And so even if we are not able to address all of them now, we will be constructing kind of frequently asked questions document and will be publishing along with the recording from the session afterwards. So the first question, can we decide per invoice if sent electronically or per paper? Yes, we can. In the knowledge base article, it is described how the query can be modified in order to specify additional criteria. Yeah, according to your specific business processes, what invoices should be picked up for submission or for cancellation in electronic messages. And so, as I mentioned, that there is a frequently asked question addressing this specific one. So the question, stock transfer is not working for, so it's not a question, it's statement. Yes, as I mentioned, stock transfers are not currently creating electronic invoicing. Yeah, so that's something what we are looking into and will be publishing the dates when the update will be coming. So initially, from the beginning, we planned like several phases of development of that feature, and stock transfer were planned a little bit later. So due to high interest, right, and demand for this one, we try to expedite that, and in the upcoming days you will see the announcement when it is when it starts to be supported. In the meantime, the best but still inconvenient option would be to create sales order and purchase orders for those transfers. So the question, will this work for AX 2012 CU12 as well as highlighted? Yes, so the only prerequisite, as I mentioned, is AX 2012 build 6.3.164. And so basically it's an RTM version. And so for CU12, it should work and you should be able to apply the package. Yeah, so the question about the invoice parameter setup, that it considers only one GSTIN number. So if we create any invoice using GSTIN other than GSTIN in the invoice parameter, the send process fails. Yeah, so initially the understanding was that there is one set of credentials associated with one GSTIN, which can be used for submission of multiple GSTINs under one PAN, but it's not the case. Yeah? So IRP requires to have all those GSTINs registered separately, but we do not have that possibility currently in the system to handle those multiple registrations. So as of now, the solution would be to extend the current implementation and make the invoice parameter form available, for instance, in tax and enterprise tax registration numbers, to let system administrator to populate and define those secrets per specific GSTIN, and then the routine of sending the invoice to IRP would need to be modified accordingly, right, to take the credentials and secrets from the other place, right? So that's something what we are looking into as well. But for now, it is not available in the system. So in general, for all those requirements and for all those businesses who can't use because of any limitation the current solution, right? The suggestion would be to use as Prabhat said, the offline tool, to be able to create an IRN, right, and to obtain the QR code to be used afterwards. Okay, so as we are reaching end of our time, I would like to thank everyone for joining today's event. It was really great to give us possibility to walk you through the requirements, implementation, and the live demo of the product. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marek. We would like to get your feedback on today's session. I've posted a link to a short survey in the Q&A panel. We value your feedback and welcome your input on how we did today and what you would like to see in future sessions. The survey scores on a scale from 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest score possible, and we thank you for your participation in that. As a reminder, the recording of today's session will be available on the TechTalk's Community Dynamics page within 5 business days. I'd like to extend a big thank you to our presenters and a thank you to our audience for logging in and joining us today. Please stay safe and have a great rest of your day or evening wherever you are. Goodbye.